Well, the Moody's downgrades are coming in, or rather the alerts or hints that they may happen are coming in thick and fast. Review for downgrades, the SA sovereign position, SA companies' credit ratings, the state-owned enterprises, and of course all of this while Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan is on an impromptu UK and US roadshow. And Miyelani Mkhabela, Executive Director at Antswisa Management Group, is in the studio here now to talk about the macroeconomic. Miyelani, good to see you again. Let's talk about these ratings. I saw a comment yesterday, and a couple of commentators have said this, that the ratings downgrade has already been priced in by the market. It's expected, it's taken as read. Is that true?
Not to the extent that it can impact the country. Almost like you will see that like the focus and the financial markets in South Africa, we are very proactive. I will say maybe from the past 5 years, you have been seeing us doing well in coming up with strategic perspectives in managing situations before it can impact on the markets. But when you look on the junk status downgrade, you wouldn't even expect that we can manage that, because we are getting a credit borrowing currently at about 2 and 3%. And then immediately when we go to junk, we are going to be getting that at a rate of 10%, of which with all global indicators in place, we were not going to manage borrowing at 10% like rate. Yeah. And looking at the US 0.25 increment from November, December last year, that of which already impacts emerging markets, governments, and like corporate and parastatals. So this will impact South Africa in a very, very
And do you agree that it's inevitable? The downgrade is inevitable?
When I look at the outcome of the of Pravin and how investors are responding on it, they are indicating one critical issue, of which is expected in emerging markets from September last year. Emerging markets investors, they are looking at reforms, and they want to see if reforms are being implemented. And the worry mainly comes around that, to say they are seeing the movements with the finance minister, but the reforms are not showing to be coming up with such indication, of which it can have still a very negative element on a country.
So Clive, I mean, that's been the theme, hasn't it? Pravin Gordhan saying the right things. He's certainly well respected, but people want to know what action there's going to be.
And that's always the difficulty. So you talk about implementation, and you know, we've got some of the best policies and laws in the world, but yet still it seems like we have to struggle to get that to trickle through right to the bottom.
But a few budgets ago, people weren't skeptical. They felt that you know, it was tough, but they were in control. Now there's the skepticism.
It's like a divorce. So once you have a divorce, it's difficult. The kids don't know whether to be with the dad or with the mom. It becomes difficult. If the grandmother is involved, then you want to go with the grandmother. And it's the same thing. We've got a new finance minister. Some of the guys still believe in the old one. Some of the guys believe in the weekend special, you know, as it were. So it's a very tough position to put yourself in. So the question is, where will investors go? Who will the investors trust? If there's consistency with the National Development Plan, with the plannings of the fiscus and how the money is supposed to be utilized, and it's consistent with what the previous ministers have said, then it's easier for them to buy in. But what is quite intriguing for me is that Pravin Gordhan has not gone to the east, which is what we've seen in the past in the recent past with the government. So the recent challenges have been against China, to try and attract Chinese, to try to attract the Russian guys, to attract. So they've gone to the east, and yet he's gone to the west.
Yeah.
Why do you go to the west? Because you want stability. And that's the only place you're going to get stability. If you go Europe, if you go United States, that's the only place you're going to get stability, and that's the reason why Pravin has gone to his tried and tested friends, and that's where he's headed.
So how are you reading his visit?
I think that is a very strategic move because when you look at investors in a country like South Africa, we still look at your US and UK being biggest investors. Looking at like our manufacturing sector, core industries, we still have a very, very embedded investment from those markets. And those markets, in a normal circumstance, they control the world. And if you want to go to a different market and not respect them, I don't think that can be fair for investments and managing the little that we have and still needs to attract more. So that was a very, very good eyesight or a strategic foresight for the government and Pravin to have looked at that market and focus on it, paying attention. I think the issue is the politics are just beyond that. As a country now, the banks, the parastatals and the CEOs of parastatals, we really need to look beyond mainstream and how can we run the country in a far much better way than we do, because all the things that we are experiencing, I don't think it is purely necessary if we do things in the right way.
What else is on your mind? There's a lot for people like you to look at. We had the manufacturing output this week was 2.5% down year on year from the previous year. Growth prospects are not good, and they always say that next year's growth is going to be better than this year's growth, but there's no evidence that it will be.
The anticipation of growth is highly linked with the current growth that will also attract investors to put something, then you will start to see a boom, employment. So all these things are integrated. So if you want to look at one element, it's not going to be a positive move. We look at all sectors. Agriculture has to be doing very well. We are not doing well in agriculture, of which we'll be having a lot of imports that are not going to be giving us a positive move on our balance of trade. We still stand at the situation where our interest rates went up, consumers are indebted, the producer prices has to go up. Manufacturing has to...
Is there anything cheerful here? Is there anything that's encouraging you at the moment?
Actually,
no.
Our market are not in a very good way, but the area that I will say it has an attraction, I think there is a huge improvement with energy. Yeah. I think we managed to stabilize that environment, and I will say the CEOs of parastatals, they are trying their best. It was not necessary for Barclays Africa to be downgraded. It was not necessary for Barclays PLC to disinvest. So this we mustn't focus on perceptions, and then we look at these perceptions as if it's a reality. To me, I still believe that Barclays Africa is an attractive bank to mainly for Barclays PLC, because when you look at Barclays for the past three terms, they haven't been doing far much better than in Africa. So exiting the African market, I don't think it is a core solution, with an understanding that they have 100% risk with 62% benefit based on their stake and agreement in buying into the market. But realistically, I don't like to see markets or even commentators look at this upside, this investment on a basis of Barclays, because that to me is a perception, it's not a reality.
Well, we'll have to end that there. That was Miyelani Mkhabela, who is Executive Director at Antswisa Management Group.